In the farthest reaches of a galaxy shimmering with starlight, there existed a planet cloaked in perpetual twilight. Its skies were painted in hues of violet and indigo, streaked with auroras that danced like ghostly flames. This was Lysera, home to an advanced alien civilization whose beauty was unparalleled but marred by fragility. The people of Lysera possessed crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbows, eyes that glowed softly as if lit from within, and voices so melodic they could calm even the fiercest storms. Yet, beneath their ethereal appearance lay a cruel irony. Their bodies were as delicate as spun glass, susceptible to ailments that no technology could fully cure. Among these luminous beings lived a princess named Arindra. She was revered not only for her royal lineage but also for her unmatched grace and wisdom. Her presence commanded awe wherever she went, yet those who knew her intimately saw the sorrow etched deep into her soul. Arindra had been born with a rare condition, a degenerative disorder that slowly siphoned away her strength and mobility. By the time she reached adulthood, she was confined to a levitating chair powered by energy fields, unable to walk or perform many tasks without assistance. Despite her radiant exterior, she felt trapped inside a body that failed her daily. The societal structure on Lysera added another layer of complexity to Arindra's plight. In this world, physical perfection was synonymous with worthiness. Those deemed imperfect were often marginalized, their voices silenced and contributions overlooked. As the crown princess, Arindra bore the weight of expectation, knowing that her disability made her an object of pity rather than admiration. Though loved by some, she faced whispers behind closed doors, whispers questioning whether someone so broken could ever lead her people. Arindra's days were filled with rituals designed to mask her vulnerabilities. Public appearances required meticulous planning, ensuring that her chair blended seamlessly into ceremonial platforms. Speeches were delivered sitting down, her posture carefully choreographed to exude regality. Yet, no amount of preparation could shield her from the loneliness that gnawed at her spirit. She longed for connection, for someone who would see beyond her title and frailty to the person she truly was. But hope seemed distant, almost unattainable, in a society where love was often tethered to superficial ideals. And so, Arindra drifted through life like a shadow cast by the twin moons above, beautiful yet ephemeral, yearning for something, or someone, who might illuminate the darkness encroaching upon her heart. Amidst the turmoil of interstellar politics, a new alliance emerged between Earth and Lysera, driven by the urgent need for medical collaboration. Humanity, with its burgeoning advancements in genetic engineering and biomechanics, offered solutions that intrigued the Lyseran Council. A delegation of human medics arrived on Lysera, led by Dr. Kale Voss, a man whose reputation preceded him. Known for his unconventional methods and relentless pursuit of healing, Kale carried an aura of quiet determination that set him apart from his peers. From the moment Kale stepped onto Lyseran soil, he was struck by the stark contrast between its breathtaking beauty and the palpable undercurrents of suffering. While the citizens moved with grace and elegance, their eyes betrayed hidden pain. It wasn't long before Kale learned of Princess Arindra and her condition. Intrigued by the challenge, he requested an audience with her, hoping to understand the intricacies of her ailment firsthand. His request was met with skepticism. Few believed a human could offer anything meaningful to someone of Arindra's stature. Nevertheless, curiosity, and perhaps desperation, prompted the princess to agree. Their first meeting took place in a private garden bathed in soft luminescence. Kale approached Arindra with humility, his gaze steady yet kind. He knelt before her, breaking protocol to meet her at eye level. "Your Highness," he began, his voice warm and resonant, "I am here not as a medic, but as someone who believes every life holds infinite potential." Arindra, taken aback by his sincerity, found herself opening up in ways she hadn't anticipated. For hours, they spoke, not just about her illness, but about dreams left unfulfilled, fears buried beneath layers of duty, and the shared desire to transcend limitations. As weeks turned into months, Kale became a constant presence in Arindra's life. He introduced her to experimental treatments tailored specifically for her physiology, blending Lyseran biotechnology with human ingenuity. Progress was slow, fraught with setbacks, but each small victory reignited a spark within her. More importantly, Kale listened. He didn't merely treat her body. He nurtured her spirit, encouraging her to embrace vulnerability as a source of strength rather than shame. Their bond deepened, transcending the boundaries of patient and healer, until it blossomed into something neither had expected: love. But love, especially one born out of such extraordinary circumstances, came with challenges. Rumors spread like wildfire across Lysera, fueled by jealousy and prejudice. How could a human, an outsider unfamiliar with their customs, possibly understand what it meant to be Lyseran? Worse still, how dare he presume to elevate himself to the status of consort to their princess? The court recoiled in outrage, painting Chaol as opportunistic and unworthy. Even Arindra's closest confidants voiced concerns, warning her against risking her legacy for fleeting affection. For Arindra, the pressure mounted. Every glance, every whispered critique pierced her resolve. Yet, when she looked at Chaol, the way he stood steadfast despite the scorn, the way his belief in her never wavered, she found courage blooming anew. Together, they decided to defy convention, choosing to marry not out of rebellion, but because their union symbolized hope. Hope that differences could unite rather than divide, that compassion could bridge even the widest chasms, and that love, in all its forms, held transformative power. On the eve of their wedding, as Lysera's twin moons aligned in a rare celestial embrace, Arindra gazed at Chaol with a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. They were about to embark on a journey that promised no guarantees, only the promise of possibility. And though uncertainty loomed large, she felt, for the first time in years, a flicker of genuine optimism, a fragile, precious flame that refused to be extinguished. The marriage ceremony unfolded beneath the shimmering canopy of Lysera's night sky, a spectacle both grand and intimate. Traditional Lyseran rituals intertwined with elements borrowed from Earth, creating a tapestry of unity that mirrored the couple's own bond. As Arindra and Chaol exchanged vows, their voices resonated in harmony, a melody that seemed to still the very winds. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though the entire galaxy held its breath, bearing witness to the convergence of two worlds. Yet, even as cheers erupted and celebrations spilled into the streets, shadows lingered at the edges of their joy. Chaol's integration into Lyseran society proved more arduous than either of them had anticipated. Despite his efforts to learn their customs and language, he remained an outsider, scrutinized at every turn. The Lyseran elite viewed him with thinly veiled disdain, dismissing his contributions as inferior to their own. Even among the common folk, whispers persisted, some admiring his dedication, others mocking his audacity. Meanwhile, Arindra faced mounting criticism for her decision to marry him. Once seen as a beacon of resilience, she now bore the brunt of accusations that she had abandoned her heritage for the sake of personal indulgence. The weight of these judgments pressed heavily on her, threatening to unravel the fragile threads of her newfound confidence. Yet, amidst the chaos, their relationship deepened. Chaol's unwavering support became Arindra's anchor, grounding her when doubt threatened to overwhelm her. Together, they navigated the labyrinth of expectations, finding solace in moments stolen away from prying eyes. Chaol continued his work, refining treatments that not only benefited Arindra but also showed promise for others afflicted with similar conditions. Slowly, hesitantly, some began to acknowledge the merit of his innovations. Still, progress came at a cost. Long nights were spent debating ethical dilemmas, grappling with the implications of altering biology in ways that challenged Lyseran traditions. Each breakthrough brought new questions, forcing them to confront uncomfortable truths about identity, autonomy, and the limits of science. For Arindra, the transformation was profound. With Chaol by her side, she began to reclaim fragments of herself long buried beneath layers of obligation and self-doubt. She rediscovered passions she had abandoned, painting, poetry, music, and infused them with renewed vigor. Her art became a reflection of her journey, a kaleidoscope of emotions rendered in vibrant strokes and haunting verses. People who once dismissed her as fragile now found themselves captivated by the depth of her expression, the raw honesty of her creations. In turn, Chaol drew inspiration from her courage, channeling it into his relentless pursuit of healing. Their lives intertwined like vines, each supporting the other as they reached toward the light. But the path ahead remained uncertain. Political tensions simmered beneath the surface, fueled by factions opposed to their union and fearful of change. Diplomatic relations between Earth and Lysera grew strained, with some accusing Chaol of prioritizing personal ambition over interstellar diplomacy. Rumblings of dissent echoed through the halls of power, hinting at storms yet to come. Despite these challenges, Arindra and Chaol clung to the belief that their love was more than defiance. It was a testament to the boundless potential of connection. Together, they vowed to face whatever trials lay ahead, knowing that their bond was stronger than any force seeking to tear them apart. As seasons shifted on Lysera, marked by the cyclical dance of its twin moons, Arindra and Kale found themselves standing at a crossroads. The initial backlash against their union had subsided into a tense stalemate, but the underlying currents of discontent continued to swirl. Kale's medical breakthroughs, while celebrated by some, ignited fierce debates about the ethical boundaries of intervention. Traditionalists argued that tampering with natural processes risked eroding the essence of what it meant to be Lyceran. Meanwhile, progressives hailed his work as a beacon of hope, urging wider adoption of his techniques. Caught in the middle, Arindra struggled to reconcile her roles as both a leader and a symbol of change. One evening, as they strolled through the crystalline gardens of the royal palace, Arindra paused beneath a cascading arch of bioluminescent blooms. The air hummed with the faint vibration of unseen insects, their wings catching the light like shards of glass. "Do you ever wonder," she mused, her voice barely audible over the rustling leaves, "if we've bitten off more than we can chew?" Kale turned to her, his expression thoughtful. "Every revolution starts with resistance," he replied, his tone steady. "What matters is whether we're willing to endure the storm to see the dawn." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a messenger, breathless and pale. News had come from the outer rim of Lysera's territory. An outbreak of a mysterious illness was sweeping through remote settlements, leaving devastation in its wake. The disease bore similarities to Arindra's condition but manifested with alarming speed, overwhelming even the most advanced treatments. Panic rippled through the populace, and cries for action grew louder. The council convened urgently, demanding decisive measures. Arindra, torn between fear and responsibility, knew this crisis would test everything she and Kale had built. Determined to act, they embarked on a perilous journey to the affected regions. The landscapes they traversed were desolate, scarred by environmental decay exacerbated by centuries of neglect. Villages once vibrant with life now lay shrouded in silence. Their inhabitants either succumbed or fled. Kale worked tirelessly, setting up makeshift clinics and analyzing samples under primitive conditions. Arindra accompanied him, using her influence to rally volunteers and distribute resources. Together, they confronted despair head-on, offering not just medicine but also empathy and reassurance. It was during one such expedition that they encountered a young girl named Lysera, her frail body racked by spasms. Her parents, hollow-eyed with grief, begged for help. Kale knelt beside her, his hands trembling as he administered an experimental serum. Hours passed in agonizing stillness until, finally, Lysera stirred, her breathing steadying. Tears streamed down her mother's face as she clasped Arindra's hand, whispering words of gratitude. That moment crystallized their purpose. No matter the obstacles, they could make a difference. Back at the capital, however, opposition intensified. A faction within the council, emboldened by the chaos, accused Kale of exploiting the crisis to further his agenda. They demanded restrictions on his research, citing unsubstantiated claims of unforeseen consequences. Arindra, caught between loyalty to her husband and duty to her people, faced a harrowing choice. To stand by Kale was to risk alienating those who depended on her leadership. To yield to pressure was to betray everything they had fought for. In the quiet sanctuary of their chambers, Arindra voiced her fears. "If I defend you," she said, her voice heavy with emotion, "I may lose the trust of my people. If I don't, I lose myself." Kale placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are stronger than you think," he murmured. "And together, we are unstoppable." As they prepared to address the council, a revelation surfaced, a document detailing clandestine experiments conducted decades ago, experiments eerily similar to Kale's current work. The implications sent shockwaves through the political landscape, forcing everyone to confront uncomfortable truths about Lysera's past. Amidst the turmoil, Arindra realized that the answers they sought lay not in division, but in unity. With Kale by her side, she resolved to forge a new path, one that honored tradition while embracing innovation. The stage was set for a pivotal confrontation, one that would determine not only their future but the fate of an entire civilization. As Lysera's twin moons rose once more, casting their silvery glow over the horizon, Arindra and Kale stood united, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. The council chamber was a cavernous hall, its walls adorned with intricate carvings that depicted the history of Lysera in shimmering crystal. The air was thick with tension as Arindra and Kale entered, their presence immediately drawing the attention of the assembled nobles and advisors. Whispers rippled through the room like a current, some voices laced with curiosity, others with disdain. At the center of it all stood Chancellor Valen, a towering figure whose crystalline skin seemed to glint with an almost predatory sharpness. He had been one of their fiercest opponents, and today, he wore an expression of smug triumph. Arindra took her place at the head of the chamber, her levitating chair humming softly beneath her. Kale stood beside her, his posture steady despite the weight of countless eyes upon him. Before them lay the document that had surfaced, a damning artifact from Lysera's past detailing secret experiments on disabled individuals, attempts to perfect their biology through invasive procedures. It was a revelation that shook the foundations of their society, exposing hypocrisy and cruelty hidden beneath layers of elegance and tradition. Chancellor Valen stepped forward, his voice echoing off the crystalline walls. "Your Highness," he began, his tone dripping with false deference. "We are gathered here not only to address the current crisis but also to confront the truths this document has unearthed. While your husband's methods have shown promise, they eerily mirror practices long condemned by our ancestors. Are we now to abandon our values for the sake of progress?" A murmur of agreement swept through the chamber, but Arindra met Valen's gaze without flinching. Her voice rang out, clear and commanding, silencing the crowd. "Chancellor, you speak of values while ignoring the suffering of those who need us most. This document does not shame my husband, it shames us. For generations, we have turned a blind eye to the pain endured by those deemed imperfect. We have clung to ideals of perfection while letting fear dictate our choices." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "Kale's work is not about erasing who we are, it is about giving people a chance to live fully, to thrive. To deny that opportunity would be to betray everything Lysera claims to stand for." She gestured toward Kale, her hand trembling slightly but resolute. "He has saved lives, Lysera's life, and he can save more if given the chance." Valen's lips curled into a thin smile. "Emotional appeals will not sway us, Princess. What you propose risks destabilizing our very identity. Perhaps it is time for cooler heads to prevail." With a flourish, he produced another scroll, this one bearing the signatures of several high-ranking officials. "We call for a suspension of all experimental treatments until further review." The chamber erupted into chaos, voices overlapping in heated debate. Some rose to support Arindra, citing the successes already achieved, while others sided with Valen, decrying the dangers of unchecked innovation. Amidst the cacophony, Kale leaned close to Arindra, his voice low but urgent. "This isn't just about me or the treatments, it's about control. If they shut us down, they silence hope itself." Arindra nodded, her mind racing. She knew she couldn't win this battle alone. Rising from her chair, she raised her hands for silence, her authority cutting through the noise. When the room finally quieted, she spoke again, her tone softer but no less powerful. "If suspending these treatments is what you desire, then let it be decided by all of Lysera, not just a select few. Let the people choose whether they wish to embrace change or cling to fear." Her proposal stunned the assembly. Never before had a ruling decision been put to a public vote. Valen sputtered, clearly unprepared for such a bold move. "You would gamble the future of our world on the whims of the masses," he demanded. "I would trust them to decide their own fate," Arindra countered. "If we truly believe in unity, then let every voice be heard." The council had no choice but to acquiesce. A referendum was called, and over the following weeks, Arindra and Kale embarked on a campaign to reach every corner of Lysera. They traveled tirelessly, speaking to communities large and small, sharing stories of recovery and resilience. Kale demonstrated his techniques, showing how they could restore mobility and alleviate suffering without erasing individuality. Arindra spoke of compassion and courage, urging her people to see beyond fear and embrace possibility. Their efforts sparked a wave of reflection across the planet. Artisans created murals depicting scenes of healing and renewal. Musicians composed ballads celebrating the triumph of spirit over adversity. Even skeptics began to question whether clinging to old ways was worth forsaking the potential for a brighter future. But opposition remained fierce. Valen and his allies launched counter-campaigns, warning of the dangers of tampering with nature and painting Kale as a reckless interloper. Protests erupted in major cities, dividing families and fracturing friendships. The atmosphere grew volatile, charged with both hope and hostility. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of speeches and debates, Arindra and Kale returned to their quarters exhausted but determined. As they sat together beneath the glow of Lysira's twin moons, Kale broke the silence. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "What if we're wrong? What if this tears Lysira apart instead of bringing it together?" Arindra reached for his hand, her touch grounding him. "We've come too far to turn back now. Yes, there's risk, but there's also beauty in taking a stand for what we believe in. No matter what happens, I know we've planted seeds of change. And sometimes, that's enough." As the referendum approached, the stakes grew higher. Rumors spread of sabotage attempts targeting Kale's research facilities. Security tightened around them, but neither Arindra nor Kale allowed fear to dictate their actions. On the eve of the vote, they visited the village where Lysira lived, now thriving thanks to Kale's treatment. The girl ran to greet them, her laughter ringing out like music. For a moment, standing amidst the joy and gratitude of those they had helped, Arindra and Kale allowed themselves to feel a flicker of optimism. Yet, as dawn broke over Lysira, casting its ethereal light across the land, uncertainty loomed large. The outcome of the referendum would determine not only their fate but the direction of an entire civilization. Hand in hand, Arindra and Kale prepared to face whatever the day might bring, their hearts bound by love and purpose. As the votes were tallied in the grand hall of Lysira's capital, an uneasy stillness settled over the planet. The air seemed to hum with anticipation, as though even the stars themselves held their breath. Arindra and Kale stood together at the center of it all, surrounded by a sea of faces, some hopeful, others wary, many conflicted. Chancellor Valen paced nearby, his crystalline skin catching the light like fractured ice, while supporters on both sides whispered fervently, their voices blending into a low murmur that echoed through the chamber. Finally, the chief arbiter ascended the dais, holding aloft the scroll containing the results. Silence fell abruptly, so complete that the faint hum of energy fields beneath Arindra's chair felt deafening. With deliberate slowness, the arbiter unrolled the parchment and read aloud, "By a margin of 62% to 38%, the people of Lysira have voted to permit the continuation and expansion of experimental treatments for degenerative conditions." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by an eruption of cheers from those who had championed change. Tears streamed down faces as strangers embraced, overcome by relief and joy. For Arindra and Kale, however, the moment was bittersweet. They exchanged a glance heavy with unspoken emotions, gratitude for the victory tempered by the knowledge that nearly 2/5 of their people remained unconvinced. Chancellor Valen visibly bristled, his jaw tightening as he forced himself to maintain composure. Stepping forward, he addressed the assembly, his voice clipped but controlled. "The will of the people has been heard, and we shall abide by it. However," he added, his gaze piercing as it landed on Arindra and Kale, "this decision does not absolve us of vigilance. Oversight must remain stringent, and any deviation from ethical standards will be met with swift consequences." Arindra inclined her head graciously, refusing to let his thinly veiled threat rattle her. "Thank you, Chancellor," she replied evenly. "We welcome accountability, and trust that transparency will guide us forward." Her words drew murmurs of approval from the crowd, further eroding Valen's authority. In the days that followed, Lysira began its transformation. Kale's treatments became widely available, administered under strict regulations designed to ensure safety and equity. Facilities sprang up across the planet, staffed by teams trained in both Lysiran traditions and human medical innovations. Stories of recovery spread rapidly, igniting a cultural shift. Those once marginalized found new opportunities, their contributions celebrated rather than dismissed. Art, music, and literature flourished, infused with themes of resilience and unity. For Arindra, the changes were deeply personal. She no longer relied solely on her levitating chair. Kale's therapies had restored some of her mobility, allowing her to take tentative steps without assistance. Though far from fully healed, she cherished each small triumph, knowing it symbolized more than physical progress. It represented hope made tangible. Yet, challenges persisted. Resistance lingered among certain factions, fueling sporadic acts of sabotage and unrest. One night, as Arindra and Kale reviewed plans for expanding treatment programs, an explosion rocked the outskirts of the city. A research facility was targeted, though fortunately, no lives were lost. The attack sent shockwaves through the population, reigniting fears of division. Determined not to let fear dictate their path, Arindra and Kale visited the damaged site the following morning. Standing amidst the rubble, they addressed the gathered crowd, their voices steady despite the gravity of the moment. "This is not the end," Arindra declared. "Attempts to destroy what we've built only strengthen our resolve. Together, we will rebuild, and prove that hate cannot extinguish hope." Her words resonated deeply, galvanizing support for increased security measures and outreach initiatives aimed at bridging divides. Slowly but surely, even skeptics began to soften, swayed by evidence of lives transformed and communities revitalized. As months turned into years, Arindra and Kale's partnership evolved into something greater than either had imagined. Their marriage became a symbol of unity, not just between two individuals, but between worlds. Earth and Lysera forged stronger ties, collaborating on projects that benefited both civilizations. Kale's work inspired advancements in human medicine, while Lyseran technology found applications in solving terrestrial challenges. One evening, as they strolled through the same garden where they had first met, Arindra paused beneath the bioluminescent blooms. Turning to Kale, she smiled, a radiant expression that lit up her entire being. "Do you remember when I asked if we'd bitten off more than we could chew?" she said softly. Kale chuckled, taking her hand in his. "And I told you every revolution starts with resistance. Looks like we started quite the storm." She nodded, gazing up at the twin moons casting their silvery glow. "But look how far we've come. We didn't just weather the storm, we changed the tide." He pulled her close, his embrace warm and grounding. "And we'll keep changing it, one step at a time." Together, they stood beneath the endless sky, their love a beacon guiding them through uncertainty. Though challenges would always arise, they faced them not as burdens but as opportunities, to grow, to learn, to heal. In their union, they had discovered something rare and precious, the power to transform not only themselves but the world around them. And so, under the watchful eyes of the twin moons, Arindra and Kale continued their journey, forever bound by a shared vision of a future where imperfection was celebrated, differences embraced, and hope eternal. Their story became legend, whispered across galaxies, proof that even in the darkest times, light could prevail, if nurtured with courage, compassion, and unwavering belief in the possibility of change.